And here's the thing, believe all of it. Believe all of it. But if you're going to sit there and tell me that you care about this issue of human trafficking of children and make it about Donald Trump or make it about Bill Clinton only, whichever side you go on, you don't care about the victims. You don't care about ending the problem. You just want to be right in your argument in the face of somebody else to go, well, what about this? And it's like, well, what about the 2.5 million children every year that are trafficked around the world? What about them? Isn't that a problem? And I'm not, I guess what I'm saying is that this all ties into this time with child abuse, because if we don't understand the dualistic nature that our unconsciousness is what creates this darkness, the things for which we are either unaware of or not willing to face and look at, have a really serious, honest look with ourselves before we go around and criticize everybody else. This is where we have to change. The Great Awakening can easily be co-opted, folks, and move you in a different direction because all the bad people are perp walked, all the crimes go down. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm talking about consciousness changing in a human collective requires us to face hard truths about the darkness from what we just came from and witnessed. In terms of everything that has happened before, now, all that came before us in our own unique individual lives spanning decades and even generations has accumulated to a collective consciousness where we have $150 billion a year human trafficking industry that continues to grow, sucks in 40 million people a year, 2.5 to 5 million children, depending on what statistic you look at. That's children that don't live on average, past the age of 7 or 8 years old, which means they have to get more children. You have 500 to 800,000 children every single year in the United States go missing. When we have a full surveillance state, when 96% of Americans have cell phones, there's GPS tracking. There's all sorts of, there's cameras out there now that take 24/7 video, surveillance video. That should not be a problem in this country. And then you have leaders on the other side that we elect for presidents and run banking institutions and our media institutions and other institutions, our health institutions, our universities, Michigan State, Penn State, other places that run charities for children, by the way. And these people are enabling this industry to run, to fund things into their pockets while they reap the benefits of that pipeline at the same time. You cannot have a world where our future, the future of our children, is what we profess to say we are caring about, or that future, we're doing all of these great things for future generations if these two things still exist. Here is the thing, though, and this is the truth. This is the hard, hard truth, but it's the most honest truth I can tell you because I went through it myself. When you face your own child abuse in the real and meaningful way, and I'm going to lay it out, I guess, in a way that will help people because it needs to be said. Child abuse is what creates the pedophile. Now, it doesn't mean that all children who are abused have the potential to be pedophiles. It's a very specific frequency, and basically what I have learned in my research and observation is that those who become pedophiles are the ones who were, as children, had no adults around them that were safe to attach to. And so they identify with the child as being the most safe. And that doesn't mean anything other than the fact that you just need to know that there are many reasons why things happen. It's very complex. People who are sexually abused don't all experience exactly the same expression of trauma on all ends of the spectrum, and some have different things that happen to them. But let me just say this. Child abuse is the root cause of this system that we live in. And here's my point. What these people do to children, they do to each and every single one of us. If they groom and condition children, they groom and condition us. If they terrorize children, they terrorize us with fear through the media.
Yeah.
And anger and tension. Everything they do to these children, they do to each and every one of us. But what we do to our children, we do to ourselves and each other, especially as that child grows up and is going to take all of that darkness, that negativity, that hatred, that anger, that fear, that shame, that guilt, and recreate their childhood with somebody else, either who is unaware themselves because they are either, could be that they're a decent person and got fooled, or in many cases, damaged people, other damaged people finding each other and replaying their own childhoods as well.
Right.
And so this accumulation, this is why, and here's the thing, I've never met somebody who, I mean, there are a few, but I've never met somebody that once they learn the details of human trafficking, they go, oh my God, you know, like, that's, you know, like they're moved and affected by it and changed forever.
Yeah.
In some way. It doesn't matter if you're a deep diver or you've just heard about it and seen testimonies. It's horrifying. But here's the thing. Why this child abuse issue is so important is because everything that you've witnessed this time, the explosion of violence in this country, no matter, you call it political violence, doesn't matter. It's violence. It takes true believers. It took somebody exploding that day to kill a person. It took somebody exploding that day inside. Like this, these are the manifestations of thoughts and feelings that have been in long trajectories over time. All of those people, when you look at Antifa and the mug shots, they look crazy. And people make fun of it, but really what it is that you're watching a child abuse show. You're watching a show where people feel the need to be violent in order to feel alive and righteous in their anger, because it's been building in them when they haven't had a father or haven't had a mother or haven't had somebody who loved them and have been seeking that their whole lives. And the only people they have is their gang, their team, that all look out for each other. And so I was on that trajectory when I was younger. I was more educated a little bit. I was lucky because I had private school, but my life as a child, I mean, I had a father and mother who were both alcoholics. They were both sexually abused as children within their families. So that's what happened to me. And I came the latest because by that time, my mother was 38, my dad was 40, and her mental illness had already kind of started to take off a little bit more than previous. As I got older, I started to see her change a lot more. But my childhood, I was in a hospital by 8, committed. Now, not like, you know, straitjacket and padded cells, but I took time out of school. I was 8 years old. I wanted to die. I was suicidal, you know, an 8-year-old suicidal, but without the concept of an adult, just knowing that I was in this anguish and this pain. And I had a mother who was manic depressive and had schizoaffective disorder. At least that's the best. And she had good parts to her as well. I'm not making excuses for her. This is the complexity of how all of these things play out, because at the end of the day, we're all children who love our mother and father. And when we're born, we're completely helpless to this. They're God. They're everything. And a child in the first year to a year and a half, it's out of the womb. It doesn't see its separation from itself and the mother and father. It thinks the mother and father are part of it. So the child doesn't even have the consciousness, let alone the concept, to understand that whatever harm it's coming its way, that it cannot conceive of the two people that are part of it, for which its essence is unconditional love and presence, like present moment.
Yeah.
It's a true God essence, really. It is the most precious and magnificent thing that we have on this earth, that we can see God through. And we have been taken away from that over a succession of generations by a certain group of people. This is not normal human behavior that we're born with.
No, no. And John, I kind of wondering, like, with what you're talking about, I mean, you understand, you've had this experience, so
Yeah.
you can identify the generational trauma, you can identify the signs and the symptoms, you can clearly see that Black Lives Matter. These aren't, not people to laugh at. This is what we have created. And over generations and generations of violence, and also being deceived in thinking that this kind of violence is normal.
Right.
Watching violence as entertainment is normal and all of that kind of thing. What I want to ask you, what really kind of behooves me, is that when the child sex trafficking came out, it was just, when you come to the realization that that's happening, it's so abhorrent that you just feel sick. Like, it's a guttural sickness, like, no, that can't happen. That can't be happening to little kids. And of course, visuals happen, and your mind, my mind would try to shut out some of those visuals. It just didn't want to go there. What really surprises me, John, is that it seemed like when people became aware of that, there was like, oh my gosh, we have to save the children, all this stuff that's coming out on social media. This is the thing we have to fight for. And yet, all of a sudden, just kind of went by the wayside, so to speak, while people did what you said, kind of fought for, well, it's true or it's not true, or you're going to find out, or I'm right or you're wrong. And I was like, where's the child trafficking issue? Like, people were going out on the street to march for things.
Yeah.
Where were the people marching for child? I couldn't believe it. I mean, as a mom, as a female, as soon as I heard it, I was like, let's go march. Like, let's get out there, scream and yell. We cannot let this happen to our children. I mean, as you say, if this is happening to our children at the foundation of everything, we're done. We're done, because we are divine beings, and this is not our nature, and it is not normal. So much of what this Luciferian ideology has taught us is that some of these things are normal. They're not normal to our nature. And it's so interesting how deceptive in increments that these people, as I'll say these people, but you know who I'm talking about, people that are pushing this agenda, have been to the point of, I just think of the LGBTQ movement. And it's like, okay, we'll accept that people, some people like guys, some people like girls, we can accept that. Now try to accept this. Try to accept, like, people like to dress up as women or dress up as men, and we accept that. Now accept that, we don't know what gender we are. We might be this gender or that gender. Now accept that. All leading to add that P, right, on the end. LGBTQP. Heterosexuality. And, if that kept going to a certain degree of deception, people might overlook that. That scares the heck out of me.
It's absolutely,
that is the darkness.
No, that's absolutely correct. And it's not even, and pedophilia is not the conclusion to that either. This is the part where it gets scarier than that. And I need to tell people this so you can understand that everything you see going forward, I mean, because look, I'm assuming, and I'm making, we didn't really get into all the news that's happening. It doesn't matter. By next week, everybody's going to know everything, what's going on. And so what analysis I can offer, I'm just going to tell you, whatever's going to go down is going to go down. But I can tell you this, Donald Trump and the military, that's the big one, did not put their lives on the line and put the world at complete risk. You'd have to believe that we just went through all of this for for nothing, just so that the globalists could all know who we are and come in and just finish us all off. Because this is the weakest they've ever been, by the way, in history. This is the weakest but most dangerous they've been, but they're the weakest they've ever been. So we can't, I'm not saying we, but if the military and the special forces and Donald Trump, who have shaken up the political establishment, shown everybody who these criminals are, and millions of people have talked about it, you'd have to believe that he just foolishly did all of this to walk away, allowing them to hold us down so that the globalists could come in and just finish us off, because that's what will happen. So I want to get that out of the way so that, when people talk about these things, we at least have an understanding. Like it's kind of like this, guys. I'm Han Solo, or we're all Han Solo, about to be thrown into carbonite, right? And we've got it out, and Chewie's like ready to fight and like start, ripping all these stormtroopers. He's like, Chewie, there'll be another time. There'll be another time. It's like, we got to get through this time.
Yeah.
We just have to get through this time. There's no way out of it, and it's a horrible reality. But there's so much more waiting on the other side of that I'm not throwing it's just not within my being to throw my hat, just throw my chips down and go, that's it. I'm walking away. I can't deal with this anymore. I've come too far.
Yeah. Yeah. And you fought for this, and look, the work you've done around.
But people have too. That's the thing. Yeah. This is like I do want to, what you were talking about, with the protest and everybody getting out there and everything. Look, the left wants forget the left. The Marxist wants you to believe, the communist wants you to believe that never-ending revolution is where this needs to go, okay? Yep. You got to have endless protests, endless marches, endless strikes, all this kind of crap, which for the person committing those acts, they feel good about. But what they don't see is the devil coming right behind them and taking over, because they've helped create the chaos through your discontent. And rather than have any intention to resolve it, they want to agitate it over and over and over again until it just has to go on and then what happens is, when the true believers realize that they're being deceived, they're the first ones killed and incarcerated. That's always what happens. So
absolutely, 100%.
But the thing about this whole what we're talking about, that these people have, what's going on is that we have a group of people who have infiltrated all of our institutions globally, and they have a lockdown on them. There's very few, if any, that are not their type in there anymore. This includes Hollywood as well.
Okay.
And it's not to say everybody in Hollywood is this way, because they're not. I'm talking about the top, the very, very top.
Yes.
And of course, there's other followers below, but I'm talking about the ones at the top that wield the power, that make the decisions, that control the town, Okay. So that's just one industry and one institution. The media, the news, our entertainment, the music, all of it has been weaponized for a satanic agenda. And most people don't know that. The evangelicals kind of do. Some of the Christians, I know there's a lot of people, in the last couple of years learning more about, seeing satanic imagery in Hollywood and in the music industry. It's going to become more transparent as things unfold, because they're not going to hide it anymore. They have no need to, because the split has already begun.
Yeah.
So
you see more of it now too, as well. You see it almost blossoming, like in music videos and everything. It's just bang, right?
Yeah, it's just going to become empty imagery in the final. I mean, it almost already is, right? But it's the same beats, the same tones, it's the same. It's a new artist with the same song, or a different remix of that, or reboot, or of that. They have basically, what they've done is that all of the incantation, all of the rhythms, all the cuts and everything, they have a desired effect now of program. for your brain.
Yeah.
Now, you can say that's BS, but if you look into energy, frequency, vibration, frequencies just in general, how it plays a role on your body's health and in your thoughts and your mind, and then go look at your subconscious mind, the 10 laws that govern it, you're rolling the dice with these people, because it's not that you're going to become demon possessed. It just means that they're planting ideas in your head that you sleep with, that you go to bed with in your head, because your subconscious mind is on 24 hours a day. It never sleeps. And what your subconscious mind does is it doesn't know the difference between what is actually real and what is imagined. It treats both pieces of information, including your past traumas, as the same as it's really happening right now, until you become aware of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like being psychically attacked 24/7, right? If that's what you're listening to, if that's what you're putting into your mind and your body, and that's what they're offering. Yeah. So I'm wondering, John, with all this that's being said, I would like to ask you a little bit more about the satanic agenda, and I'm thinking that people are probably interested right now too, in what you said. Next week everybody's going to sort of know what's going on. So what do you think is coming up? I mean, I've heard various things. The broadcast is coming. The military tribunals will be broadcasted on one channel. People will have to see what's happened. They'll have to witness in real time what has taken place. What is your take? What's coming up the next, I don't know, couple of days or this week?
Well, so I listen to everybody. So to your viewers, not starting with, but Mike Rogers of Health Ranger. He's fantastic. He gives brutal truth on his, and again, he's speculating on some things, but he's as far as I can tell, he's one of the more well-researched or well-versed in, like, he doesn't just read something and go, oh, this is it, guys. You know, he takes you through a couple of things, and then he'll give you new information. He'll also give you like worst case scenario kind of stuff.
Right.
So he's not just all in the hopium. He's like very sobering according to his intel and the people that he's getting information from. So there's another one, Simon Parks, Charlie Ward. They're blowing up right now because they're talking about Nasera, Gesera. They're actually, here's the thing. I've been on Charlie Ward's show once. I'm going to probably be back there unless something comes up that I don't know that either prevents that, or I find out something. He and I got along fine, but you don't know everybody just because you have a good time talking to him. Here's what I do know about Charlie, though. Him and Simon Parks have both verifiable backgrounds, and the information that they're giving out, even if they're making predictions, and Charlie Ward today started making very bold predictions coming up, more so than he had before, but they're talking about true information about the United States corporation, 1871 to now, which most people don't know anything about, that we haven't had a real president in a long time. But they're also giving specific history with details to bring people along so that people understand this is about one of the many things it's about is getting us off of the law of the sea, maritime or admiralty law, and getting us back to constitutional law. So there's all of that talk out there, and at the same time, all of it is true. So take it for what you want. You can go listen to them. I'm just giving people pointed sources, and I'm going to tell you what I think. There's a whole bunch of people on Twitter. I wouldn't go into Q at this point. If you haven't been in Q, I'm not suggesting you try to figure Q out, because it's taken people 3.5 years to figure anything out. All I can tell you is this. Many of the things Q said were going to happen have started happening. Not because of when everybody guessed that they were going to happen, where the media took Q and call it 17. The media took 17 and they called it 17 Anon. And the reason it did that was because it didn't have to report on the actual drops of information.
Yeah.
But instead, the speculation of somebody who wrote this on Twitter or that on a message board or this on Facebook or somebody, it was a total mischaracterization of it. Now, that doesn't mean that, although that means it's true, but you also have to ask yourself, why does the media spend so much time discrediting this and then calling it violent and radical and everything else?
Right. Yes.
And then it just, and then what's the net effect? More censorship of anybody who's raising concerns about human trafficking of children. I mean, you start following the logic and you go, okay, there's something going on here that the media doesn't like about this particular thing, and they're having to mischaracterize it in order to keep everybody away from it.
Exactly.
So that being said, what I think is going to happen is this. We're in a military operation. Donald Trump has not conceded the election. He has not said the word concede. He has not said Biden administration.
Yes.
He has talked about a smooth transition to a new administration, which I do believe there will be a new administration, different from the previous administration,
Yes.
but it will be under military control. And if that includes Donald Trump, so be it. But there will probably be a new vice president, because even if Mike Pence is a white hat playing a black hat or whatever the hell speculation is, he did the dirty deed, and the public sees him that way emotionally and will not be conditioned otherwise or trusted with Trump in a second term. So unless there is a major event coming out of left field that absolves Mike Pence of all, sin, for which everybody had valid criticisms even before, and speculation even before, and knew that he wasn't there for the reason that Trump, anyway, it doesn't matter. We're here now, but what's going to happen is this. This country and this whole world right now has had a massive shift of news in the last 24 to 48 hours. So we're talking on a Friday night. And by Sunday, it'll be even different. And then by Monday and Tuesday, I have no idea. But Wednesday is the day of the inauguration. And they have 25,000 National Guard troops and fencing with barbed wires all over the Capitol, with roads shut down miles from the space. And they used the Capitol insurgency event to create all of this, because without it, it would raise more alarms, right?
Yeah.
Now, so it's a cover for their operation that they're trying to do, because they're trying to prevent Trump and the military from coming after them and arresting them.
Right.
And if it doesn't happen on Wednesday, here's my point. It doesn't matter, because it's a battle to the death. And the military, these people, again, you have to believe everybody's all on the same side. It's all been a big script and a big deception. I'm not saying a big script in the sense that it can't be scripted, but that, at the end of the day, everybody's going to walk away and Donald Trump's going to be shaking the hand of, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton, having a good laugh backstage. I in a very cynical, pessimistic way, maybe, I give 1% chance of that, but the odds are so very low after all of what we've witnessed, and the consequences too. And we're talking about real life consequences of people's lives having been disrupted and ruined as a result of this war between these two people, or these two groups. So I think they know the law is coming for them. The matter of when, if there is no if, unless you believe that we're all screwed. But when, I don't know. But I am told by the people that I'm in contact with, and what I am watching, is this is a global operation. This is not just here in the United States. The Vatican losing power, Pakistan losing power, Germany losing power. Even Washington State the other day had lost, I think, a couple 100,000 people without. And then you have four governments. You have Putin's government stepping down, Merkel's government she's stepping down.
Yes.
The Italian government is about to collapse. Let's see, what else? Estonia
Estonia Prime Minister, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
and what,
Is that all today?
yeah, it's all in the last 24 to 48
Oh,
hours. So, like, clearly something is happening, but
yeah.
nobody knows what it is just yet. And
Yeah,
yet,
it's not
at the
public.
same time, people are really nervous in DC.
Yeah, I bet, especially when you're watching all of this crumble around and just waiting for some of them their turn, right? This really is panic time, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I know that there's lots of intel and there's things coming in, like you said, Charlie Ward, Simon Parks, and other people giving really good intel, and yet nobody really knows the
No.
timing and the date of things. But it certainly is becoming more apparent something is happening, as opposed to before it was like, okay, maybe by Wednesday or by I don't know,
Right.
Thanksgiving or by whatever, and
Right.
everybody's just waiting and waiting and waiting. It's like,
Midterms.
nope, that came and went, nope, that came and went,
Nope.
nope, that came. But
You're like,
now you can feel it. And here in Canada, we have already had 2 emergency broadcasts for for stay-at-home emergency order to stay at home.
oh, wow.
Yeah, yesterday. And so today was our first day, John, actually, of only essential services, groceries, and going outside for exercise. I'm really happy to be a therapist right now. I can still go to work. But I mean, it's getting,
Yeah.
limitations here in Ontario we can't go too much further.
Right. It's pretty tyrannical up there. I mean, I have a couple of people that I talk three now in Canada that I talk to regularly, and they're just like can't believe how your country has just changed so rapidly. And I mean, it's been progressing in this direction for a while, but nobody really kind of paid any attention to it. They're like, oh, those people are just nuts, and they're
Yes.
changing free speech laws, over
Yes.
transgender pronouns. Who gives a crap? And
Yes.
oh well, Don, who warned you guys? Jordan Peterson did. He said, "Oh
Jordan
no."
Peterson
He
was
said, no,
fantastic.
no. He said, one day it'll come here and there's a hell of a price to pay and you'll be paying it. And he wasn't like happy about saying that because he's from there and he lives there. And so it's like,
Yes. Yeah, he really had
it's
to be
really horrific
courageous.
what these a-holes have done. They're very bad people.
Yeah, and because it's actually brilliant what they have done and how they've done it. Obviously it's not a good thing, but wow, this has really been planned at a very deep level to do something like a virus that could be almost any other, type of flu or common
Yeah,
cold, and then just psychologically confuse people.
totally.
To insert or invert, not insert, but to invert the truth again that you're being a compassionate and kind person if you follow all these orders and if you put on a mask, and then making it seem like people who don't do that, who are actually fighting for your freedom and fighting for your divinity, are killing people and are the bad ones, right? Or the ones that
Yeah.
are the not compassionate ones without knowing the narrative of that at all. And really, I mean, I guess I've been awake for a long time. So I just kind of went to office buildings and went to places and went, oh, wow, these signs are all over the world and they're all being printed. And, there's billboards and there's flashing lights and this is not going anywhere. Like these people, this is like the new way it's
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
be. And
Yeah.
we go, it's only temporary. It's like, well, that Teletron, I'm sure cost a few $1,000s to be temporary. And, it's really brilliant. It's brilliant because they've twisted it psychologically in such a way that people really justify it. I have to tell you, I'm very surprised at, things that are quite in my own mind that are quite illogical. And I think, well, okay, I'm fairly logical, but now I'm feeling like I'm like the logical queen or something because just some of the things, John, I mean, you can go in this doorway in this store, but you can't go in that doorway. Okay, well, why can't you go in that doorway? Well, you can't go in that doorway because too many people go in the doorway. You have to go outside and go in the doorway. That way, if you're around anyone, you go outside, you can't really spread COVID. It's like, I don't know if that made sense, but
No,
I
no,
was in a
no.
mall I couldn't enter the doorway to a store inside. Every other store I could except one. I had to go outside. And I mean, it's like that is so illogical. But if I tell people that when they're really entrenched in the narrative, and this is no way to judge them, or because I understand that this programming, this MKUltra is historical. It goes back way,
Right.
way, and it's been working on us for such a long time. If I brought that up, people would defend it. Would say,
Oh
"Oh
yeah.
yeah, that makes total sense because then you're outside and you can't bring anything in the store." And it's like, "Yeah, but what about the store?" It's like, "Well, they're not being as safe." So it baffles me a lot. It baffles me a lot because they have done this in such a way that every kind of unreasonable or illogical kind of idea has hit the surface. And you're just like, wow, I didn't know that people would not kind of see through this, at least over time as it gets more and more and more and more and more illogical. It's this, so MKUltra, this whole thing about mind programming, it's a thing and it's real
Yeah.
and it's very, very serious. And it's been around, we know historically for a long time, and we know lots of people and leaders have been interested in this since probably even before the Nazi time,
Yeah.
but definitely with the Nazis. And you can really see it now. You really see the impact now. Like it's kind of like, oh wow, I had no idea. You and I have had a conversation for years, and now it just seems like, well, one of us is here and one of us is way over there, and
Oh yeah.
it's amazing.
It's do you mind if I kind of like give you my thoughts on it, or
Absolutely, yeah, for
share?
sure.
Because I mean I have a particular take on it, because I looked into how these children are raised in these occult families, the cult worshiping dark satanic families. And I won't get into the horrific details because it's not necessary for this time and this talk. But see, that whole thing about what they do to their children, they do to all of us. So they experiment on their children, and
Right.
you can imagine what that is. It's not just simplistic abuse. When we're talking about MKUltra, we're talking about dissociative disorder, altered states, altered personalities.
Yeah.
They do that to break you away from your true self, so you never have access to God. You're always seeking yourself through ego. That's the Luciferian way. And they give that to all of us too. That's why we're so screwed, because in this operation of COVID-19, you got to think about it like this. They would have never been able to do what they did and gotten this far without that virus, and how the media promoted it, and how the
Yeah.
politicians went for it, and they all followed a script. So what it becomes is when they're messaging, they're actually, what's amazing, and not amazing in a great way. See, all of this is spiritual when you get right down to it, because if you go into the script, they talk about the new normal, the new normal, the new. There's a video that David Whitehead did months and months ago last year. It was brilliant, and I think it came out in like May or June or something. But it was a 15-minute video of them keep repeating the new normal, the new normal, the new normal. Newsom saying it. This person was saying the new normal, the new, and it gets to a point where you're like going, "Oh my God, how can hundreds of people in my media and in politics all be saying the same thing?" And not just that phrase, but
Yes.
interchanging it with all the new. And see,
Yes.
because what this is, guys, we're in a spiritual realm. We're not just flesh and blood. These people know this. They know you're a spiritual being. What do they have to do? They have to turn you away from that. They have to get you thinking in their dimension. This is why when people talk about this, I'm not trying to convince you all of magic being out. I'm just talking about the fundamental issue. These people operate in the world of illusion, of deception. They are ruthless. They are child killers. and they are power hungry, but not like in power like that you would conceive of wielding. Theirs is one that is fulfilling the vision of their childhood into the world. When a psychopath is in power, they are recreating their childhood in everyone else. They're bringing their hell into everyone else's world.
Yep.
The fear that has been created as a result of all of this, from 9/11 to now, we've gone from attack and 3,000 dead to everybody being afraid for their lives over something they can't see. So you saw the towers going down and you worried about terrorism. Now you're fearful of everyone and everything and everywhere, including yourself. And what does that do? That paints a very bleak future, whether you're conscious of it or not. Your desperation is, we're going to make it out. Yes. But the fear is in your present moment reality. And so what does that do? It brings up your unconscious traumas from childhood. That's why you have a higher rate of depression, suicide, anxiety, drug addiction, all of those things we talked about earlier. These people playing doctors on television knew exactly that. And by doing that for 9 months to everybody, they weakened us further. Immunity went down among. Look, here's what I'm not trying to convince you. I'm trying to tell the people that might be skeptical of what I'm saying. You have Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates. Okay, they were both heavily involved with Epstein. But forgetting that for just a second, what does that mean for your health? It means that for 330 million people in the United States, there wasn't somebody who thought, wow, this would be a great government program in the midst of COVID-19 where people don't have health insurance to tell everyone, guys, get vitamin C, get vitamin D, eat a healthy diet, get some more vegetables and fruits, help your local farmers, get sleep, get exercise. 330 million people would boost everyone's immune system. What did they do? Told you to stay inside, outside of the sun, even though that's where you would be cured because it would die within less than a minute in contact with the sun. And they shut down all the gyms, most of them. They, I mean, I know I could talk about this forever, but my point being is that they did everything the opposite of what, so that you would be desperate for a vaccination that hasn't even been proven. And people are so desperate, they're willing to take it because they're afraid for their lives. This is what these monsters have done. They have woken up the unconscious traumas in hundreds of millions of people worldwide. That's why you're seeing people lose their minds. That's why you're seeing these crazy behaviors coming out. That's why they know one thing. They know how to seed ideas in people, sow them so that they can reap them later. That's exactly what these people do infinitely until the very end. And so the MKUltra mind control, in Hollywood, what that is essentially is they go in and they break you down. It's like a psychological torture of disassociation to the point where you go through you travel through 5, 6, 7 different emotional states of mind while they just throw hypnotic things at you, drugs at you. They basically make you a totally nihilistic and narcissistic individual, but who is completely programmable and controllable because you're an investment for them. You're multi-million-dollar investment for them.
Yeah.
And they need to exploit it for as long as they can because you have a shelf life. You know, you're not going to be there forever. You're not going to be. Very few sell their soul as much as Madonna does.
Yeah. So you're talking,
anyway,
John, are you talking about the people at the top in Hollywood? You're talking about
yes,
the ones that might have offered that of themselves to be on every record label or every movie or
the child
satanic.
Right. So there's the pedophiles that do their job, and they're part of the satanic ones too. But let me just say this: the appetite for each predator is different. Okay, so it's not just children; it's other things.
Yes.
So, but here's the thing: they've all been groomed into the system. So, like Ariana Grande was working with Dan Schneider in Nickelodeon, and people can go look that up. Look up Dan Schneider. There's a lot of stuff that the media is hidden. Google, you won't be able to find a lot of stuff. You go to DuckDuckGo, you can.
Yeah.
But Ariana Grande was sexualized at minimum in the scripts, hypersexualized, and he was the producer and the writer. He controlled the whole damn thing for 20 years. Jamie Lynn Spears, Britney Spears, you name any major Disney star, the odds are they came through and went through Dan Schneider for over 2 decades. And but that's just the first part. And sometimes, not always, sometimes the parents know and they're okay with it.
Wow.
So that's not all of them, but some of them are very, they already do it to their own children, and others are part of these families. So I don't, that's a whole other issue altogether. But if they can, the level of depravity at that level, like, it's not about debauchery and drugs and sex and all that kind of stuff. These people are giving their power over to a dark entity, and they are aligned with it, and they are serving an agenda for it.
Yeah.
So when you see Madonna during coronavirus last year doing all these weird videos that didn't make any sense to anybody, they're like, because what the celebrities were doing, they weren't meeting the moment. The celebrities are usually about, we're gonna make it through, and guys, and like come together and all this, like very super positive. It wasn't any of that. And so what they were doing for their base is they were summoning that negative energy, that vibrational energy, summoning the panic, the worry, the fear, to integrate that into the masses who believe in them and worship them as idols. So they give their emotions to these people through consent.
Yeah.
And so they get programmed back by them. And this is by design to move that satanic agenda forward, which we're going to be seeing in 2021 and 2022 manifest more in Hollywood and the people who worship their cults, because that's what it's going to become. It's going to ultimately become an idol worshipped cult, like biblical times, because that's what these people have all planned for. See, I'm not an expert on this, but I've spent enough time in the spiritual place that contemplate different things, and with other knowledge and things that I know, the possibilities are endless. But they knew that we were going to awaken during this time because of what they were going to do to us, plus whatever there's the cosmos and everything else, and God and all of that.
Yes.
I'm not trying to diminish it, nor trying to give you the whole thing, but they were long preparing for this time, and they had to head humanity off to deceive itself once again in order for them to get where they needed to be, because they were they were at their weakest point, but they were at the most dangerous level, and their deception was at this point, it was like reality and non-reality were one and the same for them, because the lies were just going to come. And so they had to deceive everyone, turn everyone away, get their consent in order to crush them yet again. And so to your point about how people are today who don't see all of this, like the people in Canada, the people in the United States, they don't see any of this COVID stuff. It's because they don't know the real world that exists around them. They don't know the masters and the controllers of the matrix. And so the simplest way that I can put it for somebody is like this. You go and buy a car, right? You got that car. You notice now other people who are driving that car far more than you ever did before.
True.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So now those cars have always been there. It's not like all of a sudden everybody just showed up out of the blue like, hey, wow, hey, everybody's, you got one, you got one. We're all buying the same car at the same time. No. But so but the issue is that once they say that, once you've identified with it, once you have once they say America is racist and you've been educated that way, or you have a previous life experience or a friend who had an experience who feels a certain way, right? All of a sudden you start to notice it more and you start to see it everywhere. And then as events occur that the media will give you to reinforce these seeds, that they help water these seeds that they've planted in you, you will start to feel that way. Once you feel that way, they've got you. Because they can take your emotions now, especially if they're angry and with fear, like they are right now, and everybody pretty much in the world is fearful of COVID or fearful of communism. You can, I mean, one and the same. It's all the same emotion, but now they've got you, and you are highly susceptible and you're highly programmable. It is precisely why they brought out cuties last summer, after 3 years after Me Too, which is Me Too, Epstein's arrest, Weinstein's arrest. Oh no, Weinstein's arrest, Epstein's arrest, Maxwell's arrest. 3 years. And they show you of 15,000 films that are made every year and others that they're tabling to 2021 and 2022. They put out a poster that is going to provoke, saying, oopsie, we didn't mean that. It's not as bad as you think, to releasing it. Everybody going, it's as bad as we thought, actually worse than what we thought. And then they say, no, it was made by a woman of color. It was about showing the, conservative traditional versus the Western liberal and her liberation as an 11-year-old girl with 5 dance numbers that all use angles in film that DP and her chose, along with the producer, to shoot, which were erotica type shots that you see in Showgirls, Dancing at the Blue Iguana, of 11-year-old genitalia. Okay? 5 times for 3.5 to 5 minutes every single time in that film, and not because it served a story point. So it came out, people, and then when people got to a fever pitch, they said, no, we intended to make that movie and put it out there so that everybody could have that debate, and everybody who raised valid concerns about pedophilia, and oh, by the way, this group over here called Hollywood, for which that movie was released under, you're all right-wing conspiracy theorists. And then Hunter Biden's laptop comes out and the pictures come out of that, and radio silence from the media. Nobody covered it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you know where they stand. Now you know where these people stand. That's who they are. That's who they've always been. They are not changing.
Great explanation. I mean, you explained that so well. I love the depth that you took that to, John, to really get, this isn't just showing you stuff. There's an intention behind it. And these people understand energy, and they understand vibration.
Yes,
they understand programming, and when you're unconscious and you're just looking at the physical and you're just looking at, the 3-dimensional stuff, that's how you get hooked. I mean, this is much higher, as you say, much more spiritual. I realize that we're at time, and I could keep going with you, because I'm just really just thinking of all these other questions to ask you, because you're opening more and more doors. So maybe we will do this again sometime soon. We don't know what's coming in the next few days or the next week, but I really do appreciate you sharing your experience, plus the Luciferian, the satanic, Hollywood, the whole programming thing, and what's going on in the world. We really covered a lot today. So thank you so much for coming on and helping out humanity at a time when, gosh, we need it more than ever.
Yeah, we do. Well, the best, I want to thank you for having me on. And I just want to say this to your audience, that our love for our children and our love for ourselves really begins within ourselves first. Our love for our children and ourselves is so powerful, more powerful than these people want you to know. And if the world began to realize that each and every single one of us, just starting with yourself, realize that you and every single human being on this planet comes from a creator of heaven and earth, the world will begin to change, because you will see yourself as precious and magnificent, and you will love that child that you were born as when you first came into this world. You will go back and you will find them, and you'll find that child, and you'll play with it, and you'll love it unconditionally. A power will begin to rise in you, and that power will begin to change the people around you in steps and stages, but it will give you courage to face things in the face of horror and fear and terror and worry, and it will give you solutions. It's not just about Jesus alone, but it's Jesus in you doing it for yourself. We are spiritual beings in matter. We must do. We can pray and meditate and be with the woo-woo all day long. But the reality is that we have to go out and do. And this right here, this voice, this is the greatest utility that you have to start, because you can speak into existence the truth. And it starts with you facing the truth within yourself. The compassionate, unconditional, loving, and forgiving person that you are wanting to be is already there within you. You must do those things for yourself, and then you can give all of it to the entire world. And in this time, it's a commodity that is priceless, because everybody wants to feel that. And if we did that, my God, what kind of world could we live in a very short period of time? It is possible, but the work must be done inside of ourselves, because it is not going to be found in an outside leader. Donald Trump is the president and he can only do so many things, but humanity as a whole, if we don't get a hold of the reality and seize this moment for a good cause, which is the advancement of consciousness in humanity's compassion and empathy, the greater compassion and empathy that we can come away with from a dark time, is something that will be lived in the hearts of future generations, because we will have imprinted that among the collective of the individuals that inhabit this planet. And it will leave more wisdom, knowledge, and care for future generations to take with them as they move forward in this time and space. So with that, I just wanted to thank you, and I really appreciate the time that you gave me today. And I love your passion. I love your channel. I love all the wonderful people that you have on your show, and I'm sure I'm going to get to know your audience very soon too, and see what they think.
Yes, you are. Beautiful, beautiful ending. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
God
thank
bless.
you.